Hello to those who have joined already. We'll be starting the webinar in 5 minutes. Hello, everyone who has joined so far. This is a Beeswax FreeWheel webinar on understanding deal management. We'll just give everyone a couple more minutes to filter through. I can just see people actively joining at the moment, and then we will get started. The webinar should last around half an hour. There'll be plenty of time for questions, so please start thinking ahead what you have to ask on deal management. Great, let's get started. So today we're going to spend the next half an hour understanding deal management. Alexa, do you want to jump to the next slide? So quick introduction, I'm going to be short and brief here. I'm based in the UK as part of the EMEA account management team, and I'm called Hannah Cooper. And we are lucky today to have Alexa from the customer success manager team in the US. So Alexa has spent lots of time putting together some incredible slides with some really, really interesting content on deal management. As I mentioned, we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, so please use the Q&A functionality of the webinar to feed these through as Alexa's going through the slides. And then we will spend a good 15 minutes at the end to answer all of these questions. If we don't have time, there will be plenty of time after the webinar as well to answer any of those questions. So without any more delay, I'm going to hand over to Alexa for some more information on deals.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, so just to reiterate what Hannah said, I'm Alexa Sarrel. I'm a customer success manager here on the Beeswax team, and I am super excited to be taking you guys through the deal management webinar today. So super quickly, let's just go through the agenda so you have a general sense of what we're going to be talking about today. First, we'll talk through the different deal types. Then we'll talk about how to source those deals, how to target those deals, how to view the deal data. Then we'll talk about some best practices with deals in Beeswax. And finally, at the end, like Hannah mentioned, we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. So let's first dive right into the different deal types and their use cases. First is an open auction deal. So this deal is typically used to package inventory without a floor. The easiest way to think about this deal is really that it's just super similar to a site or app list. And the use cases for this type of deal are when you're buying any kind of sensitive category. So think about gambling or politics, for example. Next is a private auction, or more commonly known as a PMP deal. This is when there's a one-to-one relationship between the buyer to the publishers at non-guaranteed volumes. So again, what that means is that buyers aren't actually obligated to bid on any of this inventory. The two biggest use cases here are CTV inventory. So if you want to buy that premium CTV inventory, we really recommend setting up a deal with publishers. Most notably is Hulu, who actually you can't buy in the open exchange. So you really want to be setting up deals if you want to get your hands on that premium CTV inventory. And also another use case here really is if advertisers just want to be able to know exactly what websites their ads are appearing on. The next deal type is a preferred deal. This is also when there's a one-to-one relationship between the buyer to the publisher. And this is where all publishers that accept your bid are accumulated for you to bid on. So the easiest way I like to think about this deal is really the first dibs on that premium ad space. And again, what that means is that you have the opportunity to bid at this pre-negotiated fixed price before inventory actually heads to that open auction. So keep that first dibs theory in mind. And really the use case here is if a customer wants to access really well-performing inventory, but they keep getting outbid in the open market and they want those first dibs on this premium ad space, that's when they would set up a preferred deal. And lastly, for the deal types is a guaranteed deal. So this is when you have a set amount of dollars or impressions that a buyer is tied to with a specific publisher. Most notably with a guaranteed deal is that buyers are obligated to bid on 100% of the inventory. And the biggest use case for a guaranteed deal really is just replacing that manual IO with the convenience of a programmatic buy. So now we have the foundation of the different deal types. You're probably wondering, how do we actually source these deals? And you do so by reaching out to the exchanges or publishers directly. So just noting that if you, for some reason, don't have a contact, or if you want Beeswax to make an introduction, we're happy to do that for you as well. Another way you could source deals is through our FreeWheel Always On Deals. This is actually in beta right now. If this is of interest, you can just simply reach out to your account manager or your CSM at Beeswax. But a quick overview of what these are is it's a curated deal library we have available within the UI for you to simply just target these FreeWheel Always On Deals that are already at negotiated prices. Great. So you know all the different deal types. You know how we're now sourcing these deals. The next step is actually how to target these deals. So you can do so in a variety of different ways. I'm going to quickly touch base on all 5 of these, and then I'll actually give you a little teaser into the UI of how you set some of these up. So the first is through a deal record. And you'll hear me continue to say how this is the deal type we recommend, or this is rather the type of way we recommend you set up and target a deal most out of all of these different types. And the reason being is I'm going to touch upon later about how you actually pull performance within deals, but most notably is our deal report. And it relies completely on you uploading a deal as a deal record rather than any of these other different ways in order for you to be able to view the data. So again, that deal record, I'll show you briefly in a moment. The next way you could target a deal is through a deal list. So this is if you wanted to upload a couple of different deal IDs, you can do so through a list. Next is a line item targeting. So this is if you simply wanted to just target the actual deal ID on a line item itself. Then we have PG deals. So again, we spoke about those programmatic guaranteed deals earlier and how you're required to bid on 100% of that inventory. So we have a really, really exciting feature within our UI that you can actually just select a programmatic line guaranteed line item. And what this does is it allows you to input that programmatic guaranteed deal ID, and you're not allowed to actually put any other targeting on that line item. Again, so this way you're required to bid on 100% of that inventory. And lastly, before I actually give you a little teaser of what these look like, is a pass-through deal IDs. So this would be used if you wanted to target the open auction and a deal ID on the same line item. Great. So let's really quickly just talk about each of these super quick so you can get a visualization. So first is deal record. Again, I'm just going to show you some of our test accounts here so you can get a general idea. But if you wanted to set up a deal record, you would simply just select the new button. You would select deal, and it will bring you to a page that looks like this. So the couple of things that I'd like to call out here, just again, keeping time in mind, is this CPM override functionality. So this is something that's only available if you set up a deal as a deal object like we're doing now. And this is a really, really great tool. And I'd rather just give you an example to make it a little bit more clear. So if you had a line item that had a $10 CPM and you wanted to make sure that anytime inventory came in that matched a given deal, that you were actually bidding $15, all you would have to do is just put a $15 CPM in this override function. And then once you targeted this deal on a line item, any inventory that matched this given deal, you'd be bidding that $15 on. Next, again, just a quick teaser of what a deal list would look like. So same way, you'd select that new button and it would bring you to a page that looks like this. I'm just showing you an example one for this demonstration, but you would just select that it's a deal list. You'd name it whatever you'd like. And then within the actual list items, you'd be able to list all the different deal IDs. So you can see here, this is just one Hulu one, for example. Next is that line item targeting. So this is within an actual line item within the UI. You would go down to where the deal is. And this is where you could actually just input the deal ID here. The big thing to note here is that you can even see it. It reminds you within the UI that you have to provide an exchange handle before the deal ID, which is something we'll provide to you here. But it's just another area for human error. So we really don't recommend setting up a deal like this if you're going to target it. Next is that programmatic guarantee. So you would again select, similar to the past, that yellow new button, and then you can come down and you'll see this deals area here. And this is where you would upload, or sorry, better yet, you would enter that deal ID. And then you'll see up here, you actually don't have the functionality to add any other targeting onto this line item because it is that programmatic guaranteed deal. Great. So again, we talked about now how to target these deals. The pass-through deal ID you would set up on the account level. So this is something that your account manager or your CSM would set up for you. So just if that's of interest, let them know. And now, again, just to reiterate, we know all the different deal types. We know how we're sourcing these deals. We now know how we're going to target these deals within the UI. So now we've run them. We want to be able to see how they performed. How do we actually view their data? You could do so in a couple of different ways. And similar to the last slide, after I review these, I'll give you a little teaser of what these look like within our platform too. So the first is through a deal report. And you can access this deal report within our reporting tab drop down from the UI. It's a really, really cool function that we have within the UI because it aggregates metrics at the deal level. So you can see things like spend, auction, bids. I'll show you a couple of other ones in a few moments. And the biggest thing to keep in mind, which I spoke about earlier, but I just want to make sure to reiterate it, is that this deal report relies on the deals page to determine eligibility for this report. So again, what that means is that it's only going to pull in any information or data from deals that are set up as deal objects. Next is the deal quick stats feature. So I'll also show you what this looks like. It's a really, really cool feature that shows you the auction data. You can easily scan if your deal is live or not. So it will show you similar information to what the deal report will show you, but it's a really quick way, hence the quick stats, for you to view that. And lastly is Meta Markets. So this is a global discovery tool available within every single customer's UI. And it's a way for you to search deal IDs that are coming in to see if traffic is coming through. So it's a really great troubleshooting tool. So really quickly, let's just view what all of these look like. First, we can take a look at what a deal report might look like. Again, this is just an example one, but you can see here that this given deal ID, we're able to see bids, we're able to see bid rate, we're able to see win rate, auctions, just a handful of fields that I've decided to pull in to show you today. Just a really great way for you to view deal data. Next is our quick stats feature. So you can see similar information that I've pulled in here. You're able to see bids, auctions, bid rate, win rate, but a really quick way, if you were just to toggle to the deal screen, that you could just view this simply right here. And lastly is Meta Markets. So again, you would get here from hitting the tools drop down and you would view Meta Markets. And then you can search within the dimensions field for any given deal ID, and you'll be able to see if requests are coming through or not. Great. So we know all of the different deal types. We know how to source those deals. We now know how to target those deals. We know how to view their performance. So let's just wrap it up before we head into the Q&A with some overall best practices for deals in Beeswax. So the first is that we recommend setting up deals for any CTV inventory and any sensitive buying categories. So to reiterate with the CTV space, again, if you want to get your hands on that premium CTV inventory, it's really important to be setting up deals. And for sensitive buying categories, the reason this is so important to be setting up deals is that not all publishers are actually going to accept your bid request. So by setting up deals for these given categories, you're able to make sure that you are buying more efficiently. Next, for best practice within Beeswax is to be using delivery modifiers. So this is something we haven't actually touched upon in this webinar so far. We do have another webinar that goes into more depth about what delivery modifiers actually are. But just so you get a quick overview here, it's a really great optimization tool we have available within our platform. And it's a way for you to deliver more or less on different parameters that you have set up. So the use case for deals would be if you want to prioritize better margin deals, you could set up a delivery modifier to do so. Next is setting up deals as a deal object. So you're able to pull data in deal report. So I've now said this at least 2 or 3 times. So hopefully it has stuck by now, but it really is important that you're setting up deals as deal objects if you want to be able to pull that data in deal report. And lastly, for best practices within Beeswax is to ensure that you are bidding above the deal floor. So not always, but most of the time with first and second price auctions, Beeswax might reduce your bid with your media seat fee and a discrepancy allowance for, again, those first and second price auctions. So what that means is that you want to be bidding higher than that floor price to make sure your bid is submitted. Whereas if you have a fixed price, then Beeswax is not going to reduce that bid. So you can just simply bid the exact price of the deal. And if you are a current customer of Beeswax, you know we have really extensive help documentation. And if you are not a current customer, you now know that we have extensive help documentation. So listed here are just a handful of different help docs of different topics I spoke about today. A lot of these go, again, considering that this is, a short webinar, a lot of these go into a lot more detail about specific topics. So if you'd like to get your hands on these, just simply reach out to us after and we're happy to send it your way. Great. So I'm going to turn it back over to Hannah to go through the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexa. That was brilliant, really interesting content, and we hope that you found it helpful. So we do have a couple of questions that have come through. Please continue to send these through. We've got plenty of time to answer any questions. If you don't feel comfortable asking your question here and now on the webinar, you can also follow up with us via email afterwards. So Alexa, what is the floor price when setting up a deal object / record?
Yeah, a great question. So the floor price is how much the publisher is saying you actually have to bid. What I will note is that the floor price is something, if you took a look at the deal object, you're able to actually input there. And it's completely optional, but the reason that we recommend doing so is if you use that CPM override function, it won't allow you to actually save that deal object if that CPM override is less than that floor price.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned that we recommend setting up deals for CTV. Is it possible to target CTV on the open marketplace, or is a deal ID really necessary?
Yeah, you absolutely can still target the CTV space without setting up a deal. Typically what we find is sometimes you'll get outbid by other customers that are setting up deals with publishers. And again, just noting, Hulu, which is a big guy in that space, you can't actually target on the open exchange. You have to set up a deal in order to target that inventory.
Great. And so if I had a private deal and it was at $10, what should be my CPM that includes fees from Beeswax?
That would depend on what your actual seat fee would be, which you can reach out to your CSM or your account manager to confirm. So again, it's not always, but it is most of the time that $10 you would have to then add your seat fee and a discrepancy allowance on top of. It's not by much, but again, if this is a specific use case, I would just reach out to your CSM or account manager and we can confirm for you.
Great. And I think also to that, exchange rate is also a really important one. So if you're ever bidding outside of the dollar currency, most deals are in dollars, but make sure that you factor in any exchange rates if it is actually set in euros. That's maybe a less US focused one, but one that definitely catches out people regularly. Great. We've got lots of questions. So a really good one, and one that Alexa and I have to tackle a lot as account managers. What are the most common issues that you see with deal setups?
Ooh, I guess there's a handful. So to Hannah's point, there's a lot to talk about here. The first thing that's coming to mind, though, is to make sure that you're getting traffic for that deal. So there's a lot of times that a customer is targeting a deal and they're not seeing any inventory actually flowing through for that deal. So hence they're not going to bid on it. So just make sure, depending on what kind of customer you are, that if you're setting up a deal, that you're letting your CSM or your account manager know, and specifically know that deal ID so they can make sure that you're getting that traffic sent to you. Another big one that's coming to mind is what I spoke about earlier. If you chose to set up that deal on a line item rather than as an object or a list, sometimes customers will forget to put that exchange abbreviation prior. So that's a big error. And I don't know if there's anything else that's coming to mind for you immediately. Those are the top two that I'm thinking of.
I think they're definitely the main two. The other one that I've come across is the W seat in the deal as well. So make sure that that's set to Beeswax if you're buying it via Beeswax. Occasionally it can be set to the customer, but buying it via Beeswax, it must be Beeswax as the W seat. Great. So are there any character limitations that should be observed while building out deals? So no usage of like underscores or slashes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the deal ID is going to come directly from that publisher. So anytime that they're sending you over a deal ID, it shouldn't contain anything like that, but there's no limitations on our end. As long as it's the deal ID that's being passed along to you and then being passed along to us, there shouldn't be any problems.
Yeah, perfect. And can I mix deal IDs with regular inventory available on Beeswax?
Yep, you definitely can. So typically the use case we find here is if you don't have a set budget that you really want allocated towards the deal or the open exchange. That's when you would probably want to put them on the same line item, assuming that's what you are referring to. And that's when you would use that pass-through deal ID, like I was speaking about earlier. So hopefully that answers the question, but if it doesn't, please ask again, and I'm happy to answer a different way.
Great. And you mentioned the deal report in Beeswax. Is there a limitation to the look back range in that deal report for me to access the data to see what's happening with my deals?
Yep. So the look back range is 6 months. And if for some reason you ever forgot that, there's actually a really great tool within our reporting tab, which goes across all of the different reports that it tells you the look back range. So if you would like to know how to do that, you could just reach out to us afterwards and we're happy to show you too.
Great. So as a publisher, can I set up a PG deal with another SSP using FreeWheel as my ad server?
That's a good question. I would want to think on this. And if you are, I don't know, Hannah, if this was sent by a direct person or if it's anonymous, but I'd like to get
This is anonymous, yes. So if you aren't a current customer, please reach out to either Alexa or I. I'm Hannah at Beeswax. Alexa, are you Alexa at Beeswax?
No, I'm Alexa Sarrel at FreeWheel.
Yes, and we can definitely follow up. So in short, yes, I think this is possible, but we'd like to check this on a higher level exactly what the question is here. Great. So a couple more before we wrap up for the day. What would you say is the average bid rate for a deal?
Ooh, that's a very challenging question. Again, just knowing that could range anywhere from like a CTV space to, just a standard buy. So I'd need to know more to answer that question.
I agree. I think it varies so much, especially when you're comparing standard deals to programmatic guaranteed deals. I mean, the bid rate for programmatic guarantees will be 100% in an ideal world. And then I think it also depends on the competitiveness that goes with different deals and different setups. Great. Is there a best way to create a deal in the UI? I think that's probably covering on the part. If you want to just recap that via words quickly, Alexa.
Yeah, no problem. Setting up as a deal object is the way we recommend it the most. Again, because when you do it that way, you're able to actually view the data within the deal quick stats and within deal report.
Great. This is a really good question. Do you recommend turning off brand safety tools when using curated deals, and any advice on how to reassure clients that it is safe to turn off that when targeting a deal?
Yeah, this is a good question. This is something I would want you'd want to make sure you set up when you're setting up a deal with a publisher that you talk to them about. But it is always a good idea, again, just to layer on top of a deal you're able to as well. So it's kind of a twofold answer, but that's the answer I would give. I don't know, Hannah, if you have any other insight you'd give there.
No, I think ideally we want to rely on the deal itself to contain everything what we've agreed with the publisher, but in some cases it's not guaranteed, and as the DSP we can't be held reliable for that. So I think it's really trusting the publisher and the relationship and the setup that you have. If you can add it on and it still delivers, a bonus, but sometimes we do see that it stops delivering when we add those brand safety levers. Okay, two more. In programmatic guarantee, can a buyer still add data provider, and if so, how do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question would be here, adding a data provider as far as like an ad server on top of your creatives. I'd want to know more here, but in short, the answer is yes, I believe.
Great. And the last one for the day is it necessary to create a list of deals?
No, it's not necessary at all. If you want to target a deal, as long as it's set up in any of the ways I spoke about today, then you should be good to go. The reason we find sometimes customers will use lists more, again, is if maybe pulling data within that deal report isn't as important to them, and it's just an easier workflow. You know, if they have 15 deals to upload them as a list, you're able to do so, yeah, that way.
Great, thank you so much. So that's all the questions that have come through. We may have one last minute one. If you go back and edit a deal list, will the edits be reflected in any line items that use that list?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant. After having time to process the webinar, watch it again. This will be recorded and we will share the recording after this. If any other questions do come up, either reach out to your account manager or your CSM, or if you aren't a Beeswax customer, you can reach out to marketing@beeswax.com and they will put you in contact with the person that's best equipped to help you with those questions. So I hope you found today interesting. And as I said, it will be circulated as a recording for those that have missed it today, if any of your colleagues would find it interesting and would want to recap at a different time. So huge thank you, Alexa, and a huge thank you to everyone who has joined, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.